What you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Hello, this is Chris from the Foot Candle Film Podcast. Are you interested in promoting your business to an online audience? Your ad could be right here. Consider advertising on the Mesh Podcast Network. Head over to themesh.tv for details.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Forecast. We are your connection to the who's who in the game of golf. We hope to make you laugh, learn, and win and grow your golf IQ. I'm your host, Allen Burton, Director of Instruction at the Allen Burton Golf Academy in Lake Hickory Country Club in Hickory, North Carolina. I want to thank our listeners for joining us this morning. Find us on themesh.tv, and if you're interested in being a sponsor of our show, please reach out and email us at info@themesh.tv for information on sponsorships. We're available on all your podcast platforms, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, and Google Play. So be sure to check us out on all of those podcast mediums. We're produced right here in Western North Carolina, and I cannot be more excited about the guests that I have today. I've been very fortunate to know some of these guys, some not as long as others, but I would say that this bucket list trip I got to enjoy to go play golf in Ireland with some of my closest buddies here recently. And I'm joined today by those guys that we journeyed across Ireland playing golf with together. And I want to thank you guys for joining us. And first of all, I want to introduce the man that put this whole thing together, my good friend from Nashville, Tennessee this morning, Mr. Van Fletcher. Van, thanks for joining us, man. How are you?
Doing well, Alan. Thanks for inviting us to do this. Doing very well, thanks.
Good. I tell you, Van, you and I go back a long way, and we're not going to spend the whole show talking about our lives together, but it does have quite a history, and I consider you one of my closest friends. We have so much in common. We're golfers. We're passionate about the game. We're passionate about music. You being in the music career, I've followed your career for a long time and just marvel at all that you've succeeded with in the music industry. So kind of tell us what happened to put this whole trip together, man, and how all these guys came together.
Well, first of all, Alan, thanks for the nice words. As Alan said, Alan and I have known each other a long time, probably 35 years ago when we were both a little bit younger and had a lot more hair. And my first memories of Alan was I was playing a golf course near Charlotte, North Carolina, and that's back when I thought I was a pretty good golfer, and somebody behind me kept hitting drives into our foursome, and I don't think they meant to. They were just hitting it so much farther than everybody else. And then once I finished the hole, I looked back to see what the approach shots looked like, and I kept seeing balls coming into the green and backing up about 20 or 25 feet, which told me that somebody really could play the game of golf. And then so after the round, I met Alan. He had long hair like I did at that time, and we just realized that we were both in the music business. I was managing a record store for a company called Camelot Music, and Alan was playing music and working at a music store and just playing golf like me whenever he could get out of work. And then I saw Alan play in a band not too long after that, and we just hit it off. And as Alan said, we don't love a lot of things, but music and golf are two of the things that we did share a love of from initially, and we still do. And it's been a great experience watching Alan change his careers from music to his real passion for golf, teaching it over the years. And then I continued my music career, which I've been doing now for almost 40 years. And we've stayed in touch. And the last few years, we've gotten together and tried to get together at least a couple of days a year to play golf and continue. And I started telling Alan about my travels in the music business and also golfing. And one of the friends that went on this golf trip, Steve McClanahan, is someone I met about 25 years ago through the music business. And I also realized that he was someone that hadn't been playing golf long, but really got the love of the game like I did. So, and Steve and I were fortunate enough over the last 20 years to have traveled out of the country a couple of times to play golf, Scotland, Ireland. We've gone to Pebble Beach, Scottsdale, various places to play golf. And I wanted to take a couple of my friends, including Allen Burton, out of the country and go play Ireland, because it's one of the most special places I've ever been to, not only to play golf, but just to travel around. So it's kind of how I go back with Allen a long way. I met Steve about 25 years ago. There's another great friend of mine I've gotten to know over the last 20 years. His name is John Holmes, who probably loves the game of golf and probably plays as much golf as anybody I've ever met in my life, and plays it because he loves it. He loves the golf itself, the camaraderie that comes with golf, and he's also a really good golfer, as is Steve and Allen. So it's been really it was a pleasure putting this trip together, and even though Steve and John knew each other a little bit, it was also great having three of my best friends, just get to know each other, and hopefully we'll be able to do this gathering again somewhere else or around the world, or maybe even back in Ireland. So.
Yeah. Well, Van, I tell you, what you've done by bringing three passionate golfing buddies of yours together to join you and go to Ireland is going to create lifelong friendships for all of us, I'm sure, and that's the magic of the game. And I mean, it's just an amazing game that we as humans can all join in and play, and we play anywhere in the world with people you do or don't know. I mean, I was introduced to these other two gentlemen in the airport as we all joined this flight in Charlotte to go over to Ireland. First time I met them, but after 10 days hanging out with these guys and playing golf, I mean, they're going to be lifelong friends for me. I'm sorry to say, guys, you're not going to be able to get rid of me. So that's kind of the magic of the game. And let's reach out to Steve a little bit and kind of bring him into the conversation. Steve is Van's 35-year buddy. And my brand new friend for life. Tell us about what you do for a living and how you and Van kind of met.
Yeah. So, again, Alan, I appreciate you, getting us all back together again. I think this is the first time. I think we've been back for almost 3 weeks, and this is the first time I think I've talked to any of you guys other than via text. So I appreciate you doing this. So I met Van back in, I think it was 1994. I was in the music business in a little different way than Van. I worked for a company called Anderson Merchandisers, and we distributed music. Van and I basically did a lot of business together, and then developed into just now a lifelong friendship. So. And Van's probably the one person really responsible. I didn't start playing golf till I was 28 years old. I recently celebrated my 60th birthday, and I probably in the last 30 years have played more golf than, I've made up for a lot of lost time, but not playing as a kid. But I love golf. I was just, I was a good bogey golfer, I think, until I met Van, and honestly probably got my first real golf instructions from Van, and ultimately now I've got down to a single digit handicap. So I actually enjoy probably golf more just because I can play a little bit better. And but Van was probably very instrumental. No doubt was very instrumental in helping with my golf game. So.
Yeah, I was really impressed with your story and how your golf has really progressed. And I think with meeting a golfer like Van, and Van does this, he brings people into the game. He brings people into, and he motivates people in a really special way. Van's motivated me a lot physically in my health categories that I'm trying to address. I thank Van a lot for that. He does that with people. He brings the best out of people. He probably did that for your golf game. He said, hey, look, you want to get better at golf? Here's how you do it. This is what I did. You got to work hard at things you want to be good at. And that's kind of the neat trait that Van has. So his artists that he represents in the music business are blessed, because I know he's bringing the best out of them every day. And that's kind of what I was impressed with you, is that Van said, when you first met Van, he said Steve was like a bogey golfer and wasn't really all that good. But he said, man, he started getting lessons, working on his game, and now he's single digit, man. He's as good as we are. I said, that's fantastic.
Well, he signed us up in some golf tournaments, and I had this fear of failure and embarrassing him. So
he shamed you into getting better. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, listen, thanks again for joining us on the podcast this morning. I know you guys are all busy, and this means a lot to me that you'll take a little time out to talk about our trip. And let's bring this final guy into the fold here, Mr. John Holmes, also from Nashville, Tennessee. Steve, you're over in Alabama this morning, aren't you? Is that where
yes,
you are
I am.
today?
I'm in Florence, Alabama.
Florence, Alabama. So John's over in Nashville. And John, you guys, I guess you and Van met playing golf. It wasn't music that brought you guys together. It was kind of golf, wasn't it?
Yeah, Van and I met we were both members at Legends Golf Club in Franklin. He liked to play early in the morning. I liked to play early in the morning. We played with one of the coaches for the Nashville Predators, the NHL team. And he and I started playing together, and Van is one of those guys. He's got such a laid back, easy personality. He's sneaky good at golf, though. I mean, and that you got to watch your pocketbook in that regards. But he is such a truly nice guy. I mean, you just can't not like him. And so I've always enjoyed playing golf with him. Over the years, we played for quite a while. I actually work for the Parks Department here in Nashville, and I oversee all the revenue-producing facilities, which includes 6 golf courses that are truly outstanding. We've had an incredible summer. It's been very hot, but we put in the new hybrid Bermuda greens at 3 of them, and the results have been just incredible. But Van now, he likes to come out. Part of my job, I like to make it part of my job, is about 6:30 in the morning. We'll head to the golf course ahead of anybody else. We'll get on a cart, and we'll get done in about 2 hours. So I'm at work by 9 o'clock, and that's after I pay him for losing in our little betting game. But we play as often as he's in town. The problem is he travels too darn much.
Yeah.
So that kind of hinders me, because he's a go-to guy. When he's in town, I know I can get out in the mornings and play with him. So he and I truly love golf. And one of the things I enjoyed about this trip, I'm not a music guy at all. I mean, I like music, but I listen to music. I mean, I have no music history or knowledge. It was very enlightening to listen to each of you. And, as you came up through music, and Van, I've always known he was in the music business, but I learned a ton just being on this trip, more about him too. So overall, this was, and Ireland was one of those places that I had always wanted to go. So we had it was an incredible time, and I really enjoyed it. And like you said, now I've got 2 more lifelong friends that I can count on. So that's really neat.
Yeah, very, very cool opportunity. Certainly with music and with the game of golf, this trip brought a bunch of really common grounds together. And like Van said, I think this will be something we'll want to do for many, many years to come. So I just want to encourage the other golfers out there, our listeners, to embrace this opportunity to get your buddies together and go on a trip. I mean, it's pretty common to go to Myrtle Beach and play golf. We've done that. Van and I have done that many, many times. Pinehurst, play some golf, get your buddies together, go. But if you can get yourself together and get out of the country and go to Ireland in particular, certainly I'm speaking from experience, because I haven't been to Scotland, I haven't been to England. I've heard numerous stories, and I know some of you guys, I know Steve and Van both have been to Scotland as well as other countries, but you mentioned how Ireland was going to be a better time than Scotland? You said the weather's probably going to be a little better in Ireland. It's going to be a little colder in Scotland. But you're going to have opportunities to see some amazing golf courses. And the golf courses that we played, guys, were unbelievable. We played 8 golf courses. Every golf course was on the ocean. And that's kind of what I want to get into now with the golf courses a little bit. You know, we played some amazing golf courses. Let's kind of go through the trip a little bit with our listeners and let them know they can look some of this stuff up on the internet and see these golf courses. We're going to start out. Van, you know, you put this trip together. You used Pioneer Golf. We'll have to give them a little plug. I know they did a great job helping you coordinate this trip. But you could not have really coordinated this trip better, Van, in terms of routing, golf course selection, timing. So kudos to you for knowing how to put this trip together and really carving out a fantastic journey. So let's talk a little bit about that, Van. I know with you're always seeming to be the leader of the pack when it comes to putting these golf journeys together. Had you used Pioneer Golf before, or is this the first time for you using Pioneer Golf?
No, I had not used Pioneer Golf before. They've been around a long time. I had used a couple of when I went to Scotland and went to Ireland before. I used 2 different companies for those trips, and then Pioneer was somebody that I had just kind of read reviews of, checked them out for quite a while, and decided. And then I had conversations with 3 different companies and chose them for various reasons: ease of getting in touch with, ease of quick response, the price, obviously, because it's not cheap, going anywhere to play golf, even in the United States if you go to these resorts. So that was part of it as well. So just different variables that I looked at before I chose Pioneer. And then once, one thing about going, especially to Scotland and Ireland and places like that is they're very destination points for golfers. So you have to plan, probably a year, maybe 10 months ahead. Yeah. To do these trips and then coordinating with the friends that want to go, and there's others that didn't want to go on this trip, but doing a foursome or 2 foursomes or 3 foursomes is really the optimum way to go for golf and for just accommodations and travel and all of that. So yeah. But basically, what I did was I went to my short list of people that I wanted, that I knew I could spend a week or a week and a half with, not only playing golf but hanging with, which is important, and I really started putting together a trip to Ireland just because I had gone there before on business. I had done one golf trip about 15 or 16 years ago, and Steve was part of that. And it's a very easy country to go to. They speak English. The destinations between golf courses are not that far away. The country's not that large geographically. Anyway, as Allen mentioned, the weather and the weather's a little bit better. The golf courses are generally always in wonderful shape because they do get a lot of rain. And the weather's warm enough for everything to grow. That includes the fairways, but it also includes the rough, as we found out. Yeah. But just like I said, trying to find the right time of the year. You want to go in the late spring, summer, maybe early fall, unless you do want to go and play in 40-degree weather, which I don't care to do. I like to play in 60-degree weather, 65, 70. That's comfortable for me, and I know it was for the guys as well. So that's kind of how we chose Ireland and how I came about choosing a company to help us. And you don't have to use companies, but if you've never been, it's really better to use them and pay the extra money to them to organize it, to make sure everything works really well, checking into the golf courses, the hotels. There's no snags with these companies. They're very professional, and they're very connected, and they know what they're doing. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, we started our journey on a Saturday evening out of Charlotte. We boarded a plane. It was a flight for you guys to come out of Nashville down to Charlotte, but we all joined into a single plane going over from Charlotte to Dublin, and that's where we landed. It was like a 7.5 hour flight over, I think, and with the time change, there's a 5 hour difference in time from Eastern Standard Time, and for you guys, an additional hour on top of that for a total of 6 hours difference. But that's what we probably recommend too if you're putting a trip together. Allow yourself a little bit of time once you land and get over there to acclimate yourself to that time zone, and maybe not get off the plane and go play your first round of golf, right away. So we landed in Dublin. It was 7:30 that morning. We got out of the plane, out of the airport, got a rental car pretty quickly. And next thing you know, we're on the wrong side of the road driving around in Dublin. So, Van, I want to tell you, you did an amazing job driving, by the way. John, you did a good job when Van let you drive. And Steve and I handled a good bit of the navigation. But, that's the good thing about it. You can get the Google Maps, get you around over there. I know Van mentioned having to have printed maps when you went over many, many years ago. And I can't imagine what that ordeal was like trying to navigate those little roads, because those roads are not very wide. I thought at times we were on a bicycle trail and we're on a 2-lane road where there's cars coming at you, the other direction. You're like, whoa. And, it's just a new experience. You're driving a car with the steering wheel on the right-hand side. You're driving on the left-hand side of the road, and just a very unusual experience. But, Van, you did a great job getting us around, man. We had no incidents, no parking tickets, no speeding tickets, and we didn't hit anything. So that's just magnificent. Good job, man. So we get over there, and we're seeing Dublin, kind of our first day. I was introduced to a little app in my phone from Van. It showed how many steps we took. And, guys, I calculated we walked over 70 miles playing 8 rounds of golf. So that's how much walking we did. You got to be prepared to walk when you go over there, don't you guys? You're not really going to be taking carts a lot. So that was a big deal.
Alan, we were doing, 17,000 to 20,000 steps a day?
Oh, yeah. I had 22,000 was my top day on steps, and that's about a little over 8 miles per day. I had a little issue with my feet, and I want to thank Steve for all the Band-Aids that I robbed out of his Band-Aid kit. Had it not been for your Band-Aids, man, I don't know if I'd have made it, because I probably used up a full box of your Band-Aids on my toes. They were pretty bad after round 2. I did discover a little product in the pharmacies over there, the Compede. One of the caddies told me about it. You can put that over your blisters, and, man, without those doctored up feet, I don't know how I'd have made it, man. Thank you much for the Band-Aids, Steve. But that was probably the biggest challenge for me, because I hadn't played 8 rounds of golf in a year, and I couldn't tell you how long, much less walked 18 holes. So I'm back into the rhythm there, and really enjoyed that whole process. But so we get out, we're walking around Dublin. We're kind of getting the whole lay of the land there. We stayed in a beautiful little hotel there in Dublin on the first night. Like to send out a little thank you to Patty for making sure all of our luggage got stowed correctly when we first arrived at, I believe it was called Bushwells Hotel there in Dublin. I'd like to recommend them. Great little place. So after our first day of walking around and getting some nice dinner that night, we went to sleep, got up the next morning, and got in the car and drove. We headed southwest over to Killarney and played the Duke's Golf Club on day 1. So what was you guys' basic impression of Duke's Golf Club? We'll start with John. And John, what did you think of Duke's?
Well, before we go to Duke's, I think you missed out on one of the highlights of our trip was the Guinness tour.
Oh, yeah.
And having the Guinness, the brewery was well worth the money to go in and visit it. But what was really outstanding that at the end of the tour, you get a free Guinness at the rooftop bar that overlooks all of Dublin. It's all glass and just a phenomenal view of a very beautiful city that probably is growing as much as any city in the world right now. They have more cranes there than we have in Nashville, and Nashville's insane. So
Yeah.
But then going to Duke's, being the only person to par the first hole, I really enjoyed the course right from the very beginning.
A very difficult hole, I might add, and straight into the wind, and the green might have been as big as this table I'm sitting at right now.
It was pretty small. I got lucky and hit a pretty lucky shot, but that was our first experience with the wind and the way the ball rolled. I mean, the difference in club selection, and I guess one of the things that I've told people when I got back here was, when you go over there, you need a caddy, because caddies will tell you, you might have 190 yards, and I'm thinking bringing out a hybrid, and he's saying, no, hit an 8-iron. And you're like, how are you going to get an 8-iron to go that far? And sure enough, it'll go where he says it'll go. So, but I really enjoyed that course. I thought that was actually one of my favorite courses. So beautiful. That was our first exposure to the countryside and looking across the bay at those hills and the valleys. And that sticks in my mind probably as much as anything. And then number 18 with those silly mounds guarding that green, that's a heck of a finishing hole. So I really enjoyed that course.
Yeah, I did too. I thought it was one of the more difficult golf courses that we played all week in terms of the contours and the firmness of the greens. Just coming, shots coming into those greens were very difficult. You had to really control the trajectory of the shot, the distance of the shot, and quite a challenge. I enjoyed it as well. Van, what did you think of Duke's Golf Club to get the round started?
Well, I'd never played Duke's before, and I'd heard about it for, since I was over there about 15, 16 years ago. I really, it's, one thing when you're choosing golf courses is that almost every course that you end up playing are on the ocean or on a bay somewhere, as John said. But most of the courses are a little bit more wide open. Duke's is a little bit shorter, but man, it was very, very tough, very eye-opening, and it kind of really introduces you to all of the different shots that you have to make throughout all the courses in Ireland. And I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was well designed, really tough. Not necessarily that long, so you really had to control, your ball flight, as John said, and you had to hit it straight, which is, one thing you have to do on all those courses. You have to hit the fairways, because when you don't, you're going to make some big numbers. But Duke's was it was a highlight, as he said, and it is not one of the most famous courses over there, but I would definitely love to play it again.
Yeah, it's one of the oldest courses. I think they mentioned is over 125 years old. So one of the 10 oldest golf courses in the entire country. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know why I had an impression that Duke's might be a very easy start to the trip, but I was kind of surprised that it was extremely challenging. So I would not say it was easy at all. And we played yardages that were 6,500 to 6,600 pretty much every course we played. So we didn't play it all the way back, but we played it at a very good distance for our games. And like you said, Van, if you didn't hit the ball in the fairway, you paid a severe price. The hay, as they call it, the thistle. It's tough. I had kind of dreams at night of walking in circles, looking down at that 3-foot tall hay, looking for golf balls. I mean, we did it a lot, but it was fun. When you did find your ball, advancing it was a challenge, and I loved it, big time. So now, Steve, we at Duke's, were we partners at Duke's day one? I can't remember.
We were.
That's kind of what I thought. Did we come away with any cash at the end of that day?
No, we did not. We lost that day, and then mostly because of me. And for whatever reason, I was dubbed the official scorekeeper, and I still have the scores right here in front of me. That was by far. You got no help from me that day. That was one of my. I was certainly the high man that day, and so I think you just got the bad draw with the partner.
Well, I apologize for not being able to play a little better to help you, too. I don't play golf, so I teach golf. I think everybody knows that. So I got an excuse. I don't ever play. So if I did anything good, it was by accident and simply not by practice or experience of playing the game. So I would have to say that. But I enjoyed you as a partner, whether we win or lose, buddy. You fought hard, and I know that was what I was going to get every day from you is the best. You're going to fight hard. We did battle a few times to victory, and I will bring that up when that comes. If you got the scores there, you can let Van and John know when those days were and when we get to them. So the next day we came back to our little beautiful hotel there in Killarney, which was the Brook Lodge Hotel. And I would recommend Killarney as a nice hub for places to play over in Ireland. If you're looking to go and make this trip, consider staying several nights in Killarney. It was a great little town. You guys enjoy it? John, what did you think of Killarney?
That was probably my favorite place to stay. I loved the little lodge. Willie, the bartender, was awesome. And being just a block off High Street where we could walk over at the end of the day and get dinner. We went one night and listened to music. They had shops down there. That's where I did all my souvenir shopping for the
ice cream, John. Ice cream.
We did have several good ice cream because at the end of a long day of golf and having a good dinner and drinking a little wine and having a few Guinness, then you top it off with an ice cream. Everything's good.
Yeah, man, and good jewelry store there to buy a few gifts to bring back home to the ladies. I know you and I got into the jewelry store one evening there in Killarney and brought back a couple of gifts and maybe even into the department store there. What was the name of that department store that we went into that had everything? The sweaters. Was that Quills? Was it Quills?
Quills. Yeah, good memory. Yeah. Yes, very good.
Quills has everything. We were told by the hotel that, hey, yep, Quills has got it. Steve, did you ever secure your stores? What's that?
There were actually 3 different stores. One was just all wool items.
Yeah.
And then souvenirs, and then there was a jewelry store. So yeah, they had the whole market covered.
Steve was on a mission to find some extremely high quality Irish linens to bring back, and he was told that Quills had them. Steve, I think Quills was probably not stocking those items at the time.
They were not. Again, it was very high end linen, and they had some very quality linen. But what my wife was wanting was they did not carry, but was able to find it online and get her taken care of.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that because you had probably as much of a trauma to deal with as anybody could ever expect on this journey. I know I came out of the room one evening after showering, ready to go to dinner, and the look on your face when you explained to me what had happened was scary, man. You said to me, "My life just changed in the last few minutes," and your wife had a traumatic accident while we were in Ireland. You want to tell us about that a little bit? I know you've had your hands full as a result of that.
Yeah, so I think it was day 6 of our trip. We had played golf. We was downstairs waiting to go to dinner, and I get this text from her that she had fallen. It was an emergency. Please call. And so as I called, someone answered her phone, which happened to be one of our neighbors. She had fallen rescuing our new puppy. We live on Lake Wilson. And she had fallen, slipped off the steps, fell, broke her ankle, severely broke her ankle, compound fracture. So she had surgery the next day for her broken, severely dislocated ankle, and so yeah, that was a bit traumatic, and certainly I think that day and the next day my golf probably suffered. I probably wasn't. My head probably wasn't with you guys as much playing golf, but I do appreciate you guys helping me get through that because it was very, very difficult, very hopeless feeling, not being able to be there for my wife. And but fortunately, her mother got there within a few hours, and told me to enjoy my last 3 days, and I could take over for her when I got back, which is what I've done for the last couple of weeks. So her prognosis is good. She just she's on a scooter. Still can't put any weight on her ankle, but hopefully she's on the road to recovery. But it was not a good text to get that kind of news. But fortunately, she was. It probably could have been a lot worse, and she's doing much better now. So thanks for asking, Alan.
Well, absolutely. We were all concerned. That's a very serious injury, and I saw, some of the text photos that you sent of her scars and so forth after surgery, and I'm really want to extend our best to her and all the recovery that she's going to be going through here over the next several weeks, and to you as well. It's a serious situation. So we were just having a good golf trip time, and I was concerned that maybe that you were going to have to fly home or deal with that. And fortunately, she was kind enough to let you stay and hang out with us. But that was terrible, certainly. Probably the only blemish on the trip for sure. We had such a good time. But moving on to the next day, we got to play a really interesting golf course. I thought Tralee was day 2. We went up to kind of the, I guess it was a little bit more westerly and a little bit more northwest to get to Tralee, an Arnold Palmer design course. I think, Van, you and Steve had played up there before on your journey to Ireland earlier. Is that correct?
Yes, we'd played there before, and I don't know if it was the first one or the only course that Palmer had designed over there, but just a really beautiful.
It was his first course design outside the U.S.
Okay. Yeah. And just beautiful golf course, beautiful terrain. Great. Just a great experience. I really enjoyed it before, and really had a good time up there.
Yeah, I think our weather was spectacular there at Tralee. I don't think we got a drop of rain that day. I think the weather in general for our entire trip was great. We had some days better than others, but I remember Tralee being somewhat normal winds, maybe some 15 to 20 gusts, but not severe, and 62 to 64 degrees. It was pretty warm and sunny, for the most part during the entire day. Would you guys agree that was one of our better weather days at Tralee?
Oh, for sure, Alan, and our scores reflected it. Our average scores that day was an 81. Our average scores while we were there were 84s. So we were 3 shots better than our average. That was our lowest average round day. And I think you're right. I think it was the golf course, the conditions were probably the best that we had during the trip.
Yeah, and it was before my blisters, too. I think the blisters kind of took place on day 2. So a little fresh, and early in the trip. I think I shot, 79? Was that what I shot? Van shot 76.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my lowest day. I had a 76 that day. You had a 79 that day.
Yeah. So, I think the weather and just the freshness, the early part of the week and the golf course itself led to some really good scoring. So that kind of is a testament to our ability if we're not playing in some gale force winds.
Alan?
Yes, John?
We do need to point out that was the first example of a course where if you tend to miss the fairway, not everyone shot a good score that day.
We weren't going to say anything, John.
I know, but I think the listeners need to know that this was an example of a course that all the courses there, if you miss the fairway, it's really hard to make a par.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of trouble making pars that day.
Yeah. Yeah, getting the ball in the short grass is certainly the key over there, and it's not about how far you hit it, is it? Really, it's just getting it in position. Yeah. Well, I hit plenty in the hay myself, so I can attest to that. Finding the ball would be the first challenge, and the second challenge, once you did find it, and caddies were, I thought, amazingly good at helping us find golf balls that were hit out of position. And what was interesting, I think somebody else mentioned this too, is we didn't find a lot of other golfers' golf balls when we were looking for our own. Usually you're looking for a ball, you find 2 or 3 others, but we didn't find a lot of other golf balls. So apparently the caddies are good at helping players find balls, and they're just not left laying there in the hay, you know. But so after Tralee, we come back to the hotel. We get up the next day, and we travel a little bit further away from the hotel for day 3. And I have to mention this course as being one of my visual favorites is Old Head Golf Club in the very southern tip of Ireland down near Cork. What do you think of that one, John? You know, in particular, what about Old Head for you?
Well, it had several special memories for me. One, we shared my spreading of my mom's ashes there because she was Irish, and that was something that I appreciate you all sharing that experience with me. But that's the course. Since I've been back, that's the one I tell everybody, go online, go to their website, and hit that flyover view. It was the most spectacular 4.5 hours, 5 hours of just visual impact that I've had in my life. It was amazing.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there, sir.
Of course, and really a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, and with Steve, tell us a little bit about that experience as well with Old Head. How did you feel about Old Head?
Well, that was one of our longer drives from Killarney, and it was a very difficult drive, if you remember, with the weather. Even as we were pulling into Old Head, you could not really see very far in front of you. And in fact, as we got there, they were telling us that we may be delayed for a bit because they were only allowing members, as the members obviously knew their way around. They could basically play in the what was a very dense fog. Yeah. And I remember when we got to the driving range, you literally could not see, 10 yards in front of you. By the time we finished our little warm-up session, it was like the fog lifted, and by the time we got to the first tee, the sun was out. Yeah. And it was just spectacular. And to John's point, it's probably the most incredible vistas you'll ever see on a golf course anywhere in the world. I just can't imagine there being better views where you're several hundred feet up on this peninsula, the whole golf course with the views. So it's just spectacular.
Yeah, it was almost as though the whole ceremony of John spreading his mother's ashes on the first tee raised the fog for us to play. And that's what I wanted to mention is that the timing of that and the uniqueness of that whole experience, man. And it was just wow moment for me. And I'll never forget it, for sure.
It was, and I'm so fortunate that we got to share that with John. I still, as he was sharing that story, I had sort of forgotten about that, and then I got the chill bumps back again from that moment. So that's something, John, I very much so appreciative that we could be a part of that with you. So
thanks to each of you.
Yeah, and I know Van played pretty well there, I believe. It was Van low man at Old Head. Look at the scores there, Steve, and tell us.
Yeah, he was low man. He had an 83 that day.
Yeah, and it was. I really struggled with driving the ball accurately enough that particular day. Although I had some moments where I played some good holes, I just didn't play my best at Old Head. And I don't know if it was just absolutely enamored with the scenery. And I couldn't focus on playing golf, and it was just that spectacular. You're standing on cliffs that drop 300-plus feet to the ocean. You're walking down pathways that are about 6 yards away from these drop-offs. Just the entire day was spectacular. And I have to mention our caddies there. One of the only days, as we had caddies every day, but it was the only golf course that we played where the caddies actually put both golf bags on their back and had no pull carts. They carried the golf bags. These guys were 65-plus years old carrying 2 golf bags on an incredibly hilly golf course. I was impressed. Those are some rugged Irish dudes. I can't say enough about the caddies and the efforts that they put into helping us find balls and walk hills, and it was spectacular. But, I think the first scenery that I realized, because, the fog, we drove in, we didn't see the scenery that much at all driving in. But when we came from the first green toward the second tee box, you guys remember that walk around the corner? And the caddy said, "Oh, you haven't seen anything yet." And then it hit me. Van, what was your feeling walking down the number 2 fairway at Old Head and looking at that ocean to the left?
Well, I had been there before, so I remembered some of it. Of course, it was, I think, 16 years ago. But Old Head, to me, I've been very fortunate to play Pebble Beach several times over the last 25 years. And as I've told people, Pebble is beautiful. And like someone said, the first time I played Pebble, I don't really remember playing golf. I remember the walk. I remember the views and just the feeling of playing that course. And then Old Head is, as I think other people have described, is Pebble Beach on steroids, because it is. Mm-hmm. As Steve said, the cliffs, the views, just the beauty of the flowers and all the vegetation is just very, very colorful. It's almost like, walking, a golf course in a garden or in a nursery, just all this different vegetation and colors. That's what I love about Old Head. It's a really good golf course, just as a golf course. But then you've got the ocean surrounding, you've got all the vegetation and the beauty of it. You've got a lighthouse up on the hill that is always visible. It's just a beautiful piece of land. It's probably one of the prettiest places I've ever been in my entire life.
And I know you and I shared a moment in the second fairway as we were walking down the fairway. I did a pretty good tee shot there, and I just remember feeling accomplished that I'd hit that shot into the short grass, early in the round. And then you and I, eye to eye, I think you looked at me in such a way that was like, this is what I was telling you about. It was like you were telling me, this is why I wanted to bring you over here. Are you glad you're here? And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I said, my God, this is the most amazing thing I've ever experienced as a golfer. And I want to thank you for, this trip, but also for that moment. It was just incredible. But, yeah, it was just like Van looked at me, and that smile that comes across Van's face when it was like hearing a band for the first time that Van had told you about. Yeah, I was right, wasn't I? I was right, wasn't I? This is good, huh? So that was quite a moment, for sure. So, after Old Head, it's kind of hard to think that we could top that, But then we go the next day to one of the most famous golf courses by name in Ireland, and it's world-famous Ballybunion. We drive about an hour or so up north and play Ballybunion. I enjoyed Ballybunion as much as some of these other golf courses. I probably played a little better. Maybe that's why I enjoyed it a little more. But to hear the history of the town, there's a statue erected of Bill Clinton. We all got a photo there with a statue of Bill Clinton. I'm not sure what he did for the town of Ballybunion other than go there and play golf. But apparently they thought it was important enough to erect a statue. But I had a great time there. What do you think about Ballybunion, Steve? I mean, give us some insight there with the scores. How do we fare at Ballybunion as a golf group?
It was our second lowest round on average was at Ballybunion. I think our weather was pretty good there.
Yeah, it was great.
And we were all pretty consistent that day. In fact, the most consistent were our scores that day were all between 80 and 85. So, spectacular place. I mean, again, I think to your point, it's when a lot of people have heard of Ballybunion, and it's certainly one of the more famous golf courses in Ireland or Northern Ireland. So,
yeah, by name, I think Tom Watson had brought Ballybunion to the limelight a little bit when he won an Open Championship, and mentioned in his award ceremony as he was getting the claret jug, he mentioned, if you have not been to Ballybunion, you have not played golf. You have not seen golf. So they've adopted Tom there. I saw a poster in one of the local retail stores downtown that said, "Welcome home, Tom," with a picture of Tom Watson. So Ballybunion really embraced him and adopted him, as well as President Bill Clinton, which I thought was pretty fun. But Ballybunion was special for me. I enjoyed my caddy. We had a mutual friend, a golf instructor friend, And with the exception of him accidentally, trying to get away with my rangefinder at the end of the day, it was a spectacular day. But I did get to the caddy shack and retrieve my rangefinder. It was an honest mistake, I'm sure. So I had to mention that. But after that, after going through the round, we got over to a special little bar. John, tell us about that little deal. Why did we go over and have a drink at the bar after Ballybunion round? What was that all about?
Well, one of the groups that I play with regularly out at Franklin, they had been to Ireland. About either 8 or 12 of them had been to Ireland about 2 weeks before us, and that's where they stay. There's a little lodge right across the street from the driving range there at Ballybunion.
Yeah, and
there's a bar in there, and Dermot is the bartender.
Yeah.
And a good friend of mine here, Scott Hickman, he's an attorney here in town, and he loves going over to Ireland. And I think that's an annual trip for him. Him and Dermot are good buddies. And so he told us we had to go see Dermot and have a drink with Dermot. So we get over there and the place is empty. And I asked the lady at the front desk, is Dermot working? And I guess Dermot does a couple things because he was out doing something with the rooms or something. But he came in there, and we all had a Guinness, or I know I had a Guinness. I'm not sure what everybody. You might have had a Heineken. Yeah. But we all had a Guinness with Dermot there at the lodge, and they had the Irish whiskey up there on the shelf. But I think it was like $190, $200 a bottle. So we decided to stuck with the Guinness on that day.
Yeah. So Steve was telling us a little bit about that Irish whiskey. I think, what was the scoop on that, Steve? It was pretty special stuff there that they.
It really was. I think it was Middleton, correct?
Yeah,
that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting. A lot of great alcoholic beverages there, but nothing more prominent in all of the establishments where libations are consumed is the Guinness. I mean, it's just everywhere. And man, I wish I had bought stock in Guinness after seeing that, because that is an amazing presence there in Ireland for sure. So next day, we get out of Ballybunion with a beautiful drive, and Van took us on a journey up the coast there out of Ballybunion. I don't know if you guys remember that, but the cliffs and the road back was spectacular on the way back from Ballybunion after we got out of town there. And then the next day, which was Friday on our trip, we drove about an hour and 15 minutes or so up to Waterville Golf Links. I remember that drive was where we came up the little country road and ran up on the two bicyclists there, in the fog and the rain, driving up that little road through the countryside there. It was a pretty spectacular little countryside road, and here are these two bicyclists trying to ride their bicycles. They must have been, 15 miles from civilization, it seemed. Here we come upon two little folks on a bike trying to ride. It was a pretty spectacular ride in.
And the wind was blowing and the rain was raining. Yep. And it was basically a mountain pass that they were pedaling over.
Yeah. It looked like you'd need to be a goat to make your way up the road, and here they were on two bicycles. But it
was about 10 feet wide.
Yeah. So what is your overall impression, Van, of Waterville? Anything in particular that sticks out in your mind about that particular day?
Well, Waterville is just a great layout. I mean, it's a golf course that's probably a little bit, if you play a links course in the U.S., Waterville is probably a little bit closer to the U.S. links course than any other ones that we did play. So in that aspect, it's a little bit, I want to say, easier visually for me anyway. Mm-hmm. And I had played it before, although it was a long time ago. And but it's also really, there's a lot of water, a lot of beach surrounding that course, probably as much or more than anywhere else except for Old Head. But I just think it's a beautiful piece of land.
No question. I mean, and the ocean is obviously bordering the majority of fairways, but it didn't seem to have to me, it didn't seem to have the elevation above the sea as much as maybe Old Head, obviously, but it was closer. You were closer to the beach and closer to the ocean on a lot of those holes.
Yeah, so you're just looking at the beach as you're playing most of the courses, and again, it's probably an easier course to walk than some of the ones we had done earlier in the week, for sure, which was nice because that was the fifth day of playing golf and walking, as you guys were saying, 20,000 steps a day. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Waterville's just a really beautiful, nice day on the links for sure.
No, I highly agree. And yeah, it was, as much as I enjoyed playing 5 days in a row, it was certainly nice to know, hey, we got a day off Saturday. I'm going to get to rest these blistered toes a little bit. And again, just kudos to your engineering of the trip, Van, because 5 rounds in a row and then a nice day off was a welcome day. So we drive on Saturday. Van takes us all the way up from Killarney, kind of on the main freeways, pretty much all the way up north, and we have to change our coinage. We know we're going from euros up to the northern part of Ireland where they use pounds for the currency, and that was an interesting change. So we go up to Newcastle, and we spend 5 hours or so, maybe 6 in the car. Nice, comfortable journey, looking at the countryside, and that was a fun day. We get all the way up there, and we find out we're staying in this place that looks like a castle. And we stay at this place called the Slave Donard Resort and Spa, a 4-star facility. I was blown away to see this place. How about you guys? Van, what did you think of Slave Donard? Have you ever stayed there before, or was this your first time in that hotel?
I had never stayed there before. Usually the hotels you stay in are small, not a whole lot of rooms. I knew when I was booking this trip that obviously I checked everything out online, as you can do now. And I knew it was beautiful. It was a big hotel, had a lot to offer, as you said. I did not realize that it was basically a few steps from the golf course that we were going to play the next day. So that was a nice surprise, but it was, and the hotel also had air conditioning, which most hotels do not have over in Ireland or anywhere else in the UK. So just a beautiful place, and it was even better visually when we got there and looked at it than it looked online for sure. So
my roommate for the 2-night stay there at the Slave Donard was Captain Steve, and that's where I got into his Band-Aid stash a little bit. But what are your thoughts, Steve? I think you and I both shared a couple of comments about the bathroom and the showers in particular. But man, was that shower not an amazing experience in that hotel?
Tell you, having been fortunate to be in Ireland, have been in Ireland before, in Scotland and England. I have just in other parts of Europe. What you tend to find when you're, as Van touched on, the rooms tend to be very small. This was not the case in where we were staying. The other thing to your point, Alan, is that I had never felt that kind of water pressure anywhere I'd ever been in Europe before. So it was. I think to Van's point, it was a pleasant surprise. And like I said, the accommodations there were just first class. So it was a perfect place to stay with the golf course we were going to play the next day. It's just incredible.
Exactly. And John, I know you roomed with Van. Anything in particular happened over in your guys' room that was worth mentioning?
I enjoyed the air conditioning. That was nice. There were, while it's cool over there, it still doesn't cool off a whole lot at night. And so all the rooms had fans, which were nice, but having a little air conditioning was a nice thing. That was true. I mean, it was a 4-star resort.
Yeah.
And it was truly top notch. It was very nice. And their breakfast was awesome. So, and that was one of the things I enjoyed at all of the places that we stayed. Each one of them had just incredible breakfasts. So
yeah, you guys
enjoyed the food.
You guys did a lot of damage on the smoked salmon quantity over there, I think. Smoked salmon was pretty good in the breakfast bar over there, wasn't it?
Well, Steve definitely liked the smoked salmon.
No question.
We'll
Had it at least once a day.
Put some smoked salmon away for sure. I mean, just in general, the food I thought was spectacular a whole trip. You know, fresh seafood every night if that's what you wanted, and I think everybody was pleasantly pleased with all of our food. So after a nice night's stay there, and we get up on Sunday, we get to play one of the best golf courses in the world, I think, on our trip. You know, we had, again, so well planned. Sunday afternoon, we got to sleep in a little bit Sunday morning and played Sunday afternoon. Steve and I got to head over to the golf shop early and do our shopping. That's where I spent the most money. Steve, I don't know about you, but I spent some coin over there in the golf shop there at Royal County Down. Hurt the bank account a little bit. And what a great experience that was. I mean, we're in a golf shop in the number one golf course outside the United States, ranked by Golf Digest in 2018, I believe, Royal County Down. And we're in the golf shop, and it was the golf professional assistant and just you and I. It was like we had a private showing of the entire inventory of their golf shop. What an experience. What did you think about that?
Oh, it was like I said, it was spectacular. One, obviously, this was probably the most famous golf course that we were going to play during our trip, and to get there, and I think that morning, I think that the course was only open to members. That's the reason that we didn't see anybody there. And that's where I had saved all the gifts I was bringing back for our other buddies and so forth. That's where I was going to do it. So it was an incredible experience there to be able to almost have sort of a private shopping experience in one of the best golf courses in the world. So it was spectacular. By far, I am Irish, and I had always been looking for places in Ireland to have my wife spread my ashes someday, and clearly what I found there at Royal County Downs, that's where I would want part of my ashes to be at some point. So spectacular place.
No, I agree with you. I think it was a really magnificent experience, and to start it off so spectacular with that private showing of the golf shop. They had one of the best golf shops in terms of inventory, selection. To me, I'm kind of picky when it comes to shirts and apparel and items, and they just had the color schemes that I like. And, I went a little overboard there in the golf shop, but I tell you, I have no regrets. That place was amazing. And the golf course was just as spectacular. We started off, had a couple of really good caddies. I know Neil was the caddy that I was using that day, and gave us good advice in general. I remember one experience on the back nine where I hit a tee shot I thought was pretty much on the recommended line, and we never found the ball. But for the most part, you hit it where they told you to hit it. You were going to find your golf ball in a good spot.
Alan, they didn't know how far you could hit the ball. That was the problem.
Well, I think that's probably maybe a little bit it. I actually hit, after the whole day, he didn't think I could hit it that far, and I finally hit one in the center of the club face, and that's what happened, right? I'd been skanking it all day, and then it caught one solid, and it went a little further than he thought I was capable of hitting it probably, but that's what I would think happened. But, spectacular day. I mean, I did drive on the little short par 4 there coming in. I hit a driver, and it rolled right over the center of the green on a par 4, and felt like a little bit of a unfortunate situation. But hey, what are you going to do? Hit the shot I meant to hit, and actually drove it over a par 4 green. So that was one of my highlights of the trip for me. So what are your main takeaways from Royal County Down, guys? I know we all took a picture there on the 9th fairway, which is a pretty spectacular vista looking down over that hotel, the town. I mean, that picture was just amazing as we're looking behind us. The ocean, the mountains in the background, I think is called the Mourne Mountains, and that was one of my very favorite pictures of the whole trip was the four of us standing on that vista looking back. What will that go down in your mind, John, as one of the moments of the trip?
Definitely that picture in particular, and I don't have it pulled up on my phone, but yeah, that was one of the best pictures we took. I guess what I would say just real quickly, we were so fortunate the first 5 days. It would rain, but it wouldn't rain while we played golf. Royal County Downs was our first experience where we actually had to put on rain suits, and we got a little bit of rain with the game, but not enough to make it uncomfortable. It was to me the perfect exposure to the elements, and that course was just so spectacular. And like you said, the views were outstanding. So no, that was one of my favorite days. Yeah,
I agree. You, Van, in particular, what are your thoughts about Royal County Down? I know you played it before. Did it exceed your expectations from your memory from the previous time?
Well, I actually, that is one that I had not played before.
Oh, okay.
I've just always heard of it, and obviously it's, as you said, it's ranked as the number one course outside of the U.S., and has been that way on and off for a long time. Looking back on that course, as I've done several times since we left, it was one of those courses that every hole had its own kind of look and feel, and it was on the coast, but it was a lot hillier than I thought it was going to be. The rough, the vegetation and the flowers and the weeds and the rough were all colorful. Probably the hardest rough, I guess because I hit in it several times, but probably the hardest rough to hit a ball out of once you hit it in we played over in Ireland.
Yeah,
and it was just beautiful. It was spectacular. I did not play well that day, but I really enjoyed the round of golf, even not playing very well. And that's not an easy thing to do with golf sometimes, but for that course, just because of the beauty of it and the way that they design the holes, and this course was designed, I'm sure, 100 and some years ago, just absolutely beautiful. That's one I definitely want to go play again. There is some local knowledge involved, and just the sight lines, as you say, Alan, you just want to see it again. You want to play it again and get another chance at it. Just beautiful course, beautiful piece of land, and just really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to play it for sure, because it definitely has to be on your list if you're going over there. We had good caddies that day, I think, pretty good. They've been doing it a long time. I think the guy I had was Neil. He mentioned being a caddy there for 26 years or so, but started when he was a very young man because he wasn't an older guy. He was kind of in his 30s, upper 30s, but he'd been doing it a long time since he was a little boy, and that's always enjoyable. They give you pretty good information if they've been doing it that long. But just in particular, a really special day to be out there with you guys on that golf course, and I'll never forget it. That picture on number 9 just kind of brings it all home for me every time I look at it. So never forget it. So then we get the opportunity the next day to go over to the Island Club. I believe it was Monday's round, Island Club. We had to check out of the Slave Donard and head back down to Dublin. And we checked back into Buswell's down there in Dublin. And the Island Club was really kind of out there a little bit. I was impressed. It was very similar in a lot of ways, but as the trip kind of goes into the back or to the rear of my mind, one of the things that sticks out about the Island Club was the fact that we played 8 straight par 4s on the front 9 without seeing a par 5 or a par 3, which is very unusual. And that sticks out a little bit. I think I hit the ball pretty well at the Island Club. I had a very good young caddy and one of my better ball striking days. Still not a great scoring day, but I think I hit the ball pretty well for the most part that day. So that sticks out a little bit for me. But the unusual course layout was kind of the thing for me. Finished up on number 9 was a par 3. But I've never played a golf course with such an unusual layout with 8 straight par 4s. Does that stick out in you guys' mind as being pretty unusual? Van, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I've played a lot of golf. I've never played a course that started out with 8 par 4s. I didn't even really realize it either because I hadn't really looked over the scorecard. But very interesting. I really enjoyed it. It's not one of the higher ranked golf courses over there, but I thought it was a good test and fun to play. And actually, for the I think 7th round of golf that we were playing, not a hard course to walk, which as we've talked about a couple of times, you do a lot of walking in a short period of time over there, and it was a good course for the back end of the trip, I thought.
Absolutely. And Steve, any particular memories you have of the Island Club? Anything you want to share?
I think it probably was our the combination of wind and rain that day is probably the worst conditions we played in. I know a couple of you and Van played pretty well. John and I really struggled there. But that was, we had dealt earlier in the trip with, as John said, we really didn't have rain elements to deal with, but we dealt with wind. This was the first time that we actually had the combination of wind and rain.
Yeah.
And honestly, probably mostly because of John and I scores, it was by almost 2 shots, our highest average score day. Our averages were 88 that day. Now, John and I were in the 90s. Obviously, Van and Allen played much better. But I think the conditions sort of contributed to the higher scores that day.
Yeah, I remember in particular that's where I lost my umbrella. That's where the wind kind of flipped the umbrella out for me. So I left my umbrella there at the Island Club as a result of that. But, I think using an umbrella over there is a bit of a challenge, and I'd probably recommend don't even bother because if it's going to rain, just put your rain gear on. The wind is going to take that umbrella and just make it a nightmare to keep up with. And I think as the wind blows over there, it's probably tough to use an umbrella. But anyway, that's my advice. But moving on to the very last day of our trip, I know for me, I was exhausted, but still ready to play another day. And I remember bandaging up my toes there. I didn't even get a chance to hit balls on the range that particular morning for the final day. But our last day at Port Mornick was kind of special for me in that one of my golf students, Elliot Grayson, had just been over and played the British Am there this year. And he had given me some insights to the golf course from his experiences and shared with me one of the holes had a fairway. It was like 14 yards wide. So I remember that particular hole specifically for myself because I actually did hit a driver in the fairway and paced out the fairway where my ball was like 6 or 7 yards wide. So I felt pretty accomplished in that I hit the fairway for a change, and it was a very small one. But what are you guys' thoughts here? I'm going to talk to John for a second and just get his insight to our final day at Port Mornick. What were your thoughts, John?
Well, by then my golf elbow had pretty much was taking its toll on me, but it was impressive to watch you hit the ball. I mean, you say you're a teacher and you don't play much and haven't played much, but this was an example of where after playing that many rounds, your game really started coming on. And that, I think, was that the course that had the most narrow fairway in Ireland? Is that what they said?
Yeah, that's what I think it was touted as being the narrowest fairway, in Ireland,
and
in Europe.
You hit it right in the middle of the fairway.
Yeah.
It was fairly impressive. The entire experience was just incredible to me. But the thing that is very true and that I'll remember forever is if you hit it out of the fairway, it's really, really hard to make a par. It's really hard to make a bogey, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
The more I struggled with that, the worse it got. So it was an awesome experience. But yeah, Port Mornick was a beautiful course.
Yeah, and with and Steve, I think to mention, how we played that particular day. Tell us a little bit about our scores on Port Mornick, our final day, because all of us were playing the 8th round of golf in a trip. There had to be some mental and physical fatigue for some of us, maybe. How do we fare on the scorecard that day, Steve?
We averaged. It was one of our better days on average. We shot an 84, but again, you shot an 80. You played really, really well that day, and I think as John was pointing out, you were getting better every day. You could tell that obviously you know what you're doing, and the more golf you play, the better you got, and that was very evident in all the scores. We had a little game going for the entire trip where we all put in some cash, and we set up several metrics. I should say that Allen, at the end of the 8 rounds of golf, won every metric. So he won every bet, basically, we had, from average lowest score, the most birdies. Allen averaged almost 1 birdie a round. He had the fewest doubles each round, less than 2 a round, which is very hard to do over there. Like you said, when you get in that heather, you're fighting not just to find your ball, but to just you're looking to make a double bogey or worse. And you also had the most pars on the trip. So it's just collectively, and all of that. If you looked at the scores after day 4 or 5, you weren't in the lead, but after the last 3 or 4 rounds, your game sort of took over. So kudos for that.
Well, I kind of figured some stuff out about what you need to do around the greens over there in terms of putting from so far off the green. On that hole where I hit the drive in the middle of the fairway, it was 6 yards wide. I actually putted from about 30 yards off the green up to about 6 feet and made it for birdie. So it just took me a while to adjust, and I think everybody needs to understand what's going to be expected of you when you go over there. You're going to have to hit shots you're not used to hitting and adapt, and that's something that I've always tried to teach my players to do, is just adapt, and that's something that I was fortunate enough to do a little bit throughout the week, is adapt. You can't express enough how to prepare your game for playing over there, because over here in America the fairways are different. There's more grass on them. They're softer. The irrigation over here is a little bit, I think, overused, and sometimes the conditions are a little plush. And when you get over there, things are a little more barren and a little bit more rugged and a little firmer, and you just have to play different shots. You have to run the ball along the ground, and you can't fly it into the greens and try to spin it and stop it quickly as much over there. So I just had to adapt, and was fortunate enough to do that over time. I love the opportunity to go back and do it again. I think everybody feels that way. You say, hey, I think I'll do better next time. And that's the beauty of the game of golf, isn't it, guys? I'm going to do better next time.
No, I think that's a good point. And actually, that Port Marnock, I remember looking back on that course. I do remember your drive on that hole. And as you say, I think where you ended up was probably 6 or 7 yards wide, which is, that's 20 feet wide. And you hit it about 320. And you had 30, 40 yards to the green. But I remember the putt from the fairway as much as the drive, because it's not easy putting 10, 20, 30 yards off of a green and trying to get the distance down. Maybe the line is a little bit easier, but the distance down. And that's something that that Allen did better than any of us did as the week went on. I never got comfortable with it. I know John never got comfortable with it. And you, the last 3 or 4 days, as Steve said, your scores improved. And it was mainly because you figured out how to take that putter from 10 yards off a green, 30, 40 feet off the green, and get it up within 3 or 4 or 5 feet to make the next putt. And that was pretty impressive, because you had never played over there before. I had. And I just kind of forgot how important that was in your overall score to be able to do. As you said, adapting is something that you did better than any of us. So.
Well, there's definitely. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you guys to say. But I tell you something about Irish golf, and this is just an interesting thought for me. Yes, you can adapt. You can make adjustments, but there's still a luck component involved. in every shot you hit over there. The bounce along the ground is just as much an Irish luck thing. And some days you get good bounces and some days you don't. That's part of the game. But, yeah, I felt that overall we all played great golf. We all played very similarly. And we could go over there next week and all of us play 8 rounds of golf, and it could turn out differently as it will, because that's the game of golf. But the ball is just going to – when it's on the ground and it's touching the ground so much, the ground has more control over it than the golfer at times. And so you're going to get good bounces and you're going to get bad bounces, and that's the fun of the game. And that's part of the challenge that we're all dealing with, so we don't get emotionally wrapped up into how the ball turned out. And the beauty of this trip for me was that we want to do it again. We all want to go back. We all want to go together and do it again, and that's I think it's a beautiful thing.
Well, Alan, I do want to say a couple of things about playing over there and actually playing in general. I've never been one to once I finish a round of golf, I try not to go back and go through the rounds that much. But once I got back from Ireland, I thought about the way I had played, because you always want to play better. But there's some things that, just going through the conversation today, that I think when you do go play in Ireland or Scotland, or even here in the U.S., there's a few things that you really need to work on as much as you do your swing and all that stuff. You need to, as Johnny said several times, you got to hit the ball in the fairways. The rough over there, the rough this trip, I thought was a lot harder than the trip several years ago, because I think they've had a lot more rain over there this year than they normally get. It's been warmer, so the rough was thicker. It was more grown up. It was a lot harder to hit out of. Sometimes when I watch the British Open or I watch the European Tour, these guys can hit it in rough that's a foot high, and they can go in there and hit it out of it. It's because it's dry and it's kind of wispy. This rough was really thick and damp and wet, and you could not control the ball at all. Even if you could get the club on it, you could not control the ball on it. So that's one thing that I took back. I should have hit a lot more 3-4 woods off the tees, even on 400-yard plus par fours, just to get it in the short grass. The other thing is, once you get in the short grass, hitting into these greens, you're much better off being short than you are hitting it on the greens and bouncing it over the greens. You have a much better chance of getting up and down for par than you do if you hit it long. Once you hit it long, it can go over the green into some real heavy rough, or if you pull it or push it, it's just going to go down hills and end up no telling where. I do wish that I'd aimed more at the fat side of the greens, not even looked at the pin. I wish that I had practiced putting from the fringe in the U.S. before I went over there a lot more, because I generally chip a lot over here from the fringe. Even if I'm 2 or 3 or 4 feet off, I chip a lot. Over there, you really need to putt it, and I'm not very good at it, and I realized that coming back as well. And the only other thing that I thought about my swing was, I usually swing at 85, 90%, maybe even 100%. You really need to swing at about 75% over there, because the spin, as you alluded to earlier, the spin on the ball with the wind behind you or into the wind, you need to learn to hit that 70-75% swing to reduce the spin. I think you'll gain 2 or 3 or 4 strokes a day if you can figure out how to do that. And like I say, practice it before you go over there. So those are the few things that I thought about when I got back, as I was thinking about how I could have played better and how I could have beaten Allen if I had done those things, but I did not do them. So we're definitely going to go back again and give it another shot.
Yeah, well, I love those statements, and every one of them, you're spot on, Van, because that's what the game requires over there, is to play it lower with less spin, lower speeds. And it's a big adaptation for us as American golfers going over there and learning how to play those shots. It was fun. It was a fun challenge for me, for sure, and I can't wait to go back. As we look at the end of our journey, we get out of there, guys, and what else can be said? We had 8 magnificent golf courses. We had great food. We had great fun. We had great memories. We come back better people, better friends, better golfers, better visionaries of how we can improve our games. What else can be said about that trip? But I can't wait to do it again. And I know it's probably time to wrap our show up. We've gone over a little bit. Some of you guys are busy and probably need to get on with your day. But let's go through a couple of final comments from each of you. I'll start with John. And John, just give us some final thoughts of things that you take away from this trip, and what can you share with our listeners about this experience?
I guess my biggest concern going over there, I'm a fair weather golfer. It was an interesting experience. The first 5 days were phenomenal. I could go, if I could have that weather every time I go, I'd be fine. Being exposed to what we were the last 3 days gave me a taste of what it is. And while it's a challenge, it's still incredible. And to be able to spend time with friends, and, we'd go out to dinner. We spent a lot of time together, got to know people that we didn't know as well. I mean, in this case, I didn't know you at all. I knew Steve just a little bit from having met him at the lake, and Van I've known for a long time, and I got to know him even better. So this type of a trip is really a bonding thing for me. I mean, golf was awesome, but the bonding that you get out of it, I think, makes it that much more worthwhile.
Yeah, very good. And Steve, how about yourself? What are some final thoughts from your side of this trip?
Something we touched on very early on, and I think it's probably worth emphasizing. We only stayed 3 different places. So we were in Killarney for 5 days, and it was a good home base. And I highly recommend that to people. And it's something that kudos to Van for structuring our trip this way. It did cause us to drive a little more, but it's certainly much easier to drive an hour than it is to pack up, load your van up, move again. So, I highly recommend trying to stay sort of centrally locate during your trip, because it's much better to stay fewer places and drive a little bit more than it is to pick up and move every day. I would hate to do that. So Van organized this trip perfectly, I thought, that way. I had been to Ireland before, had never spent time in Dublin. So it was quite a treat to fly in and out of Dublin and sort of even base out of there on the front end, the back end of the trip. That's something I certainly would want to do again, as well as probably spending a little more time in Northern Ireland and in the Belfast area. But it was a great trip, and you guys almost made the golf sort of secondary to be able to spend time with you. So it was a blast, and I look forward to do it again with you guys.
Likewise, I really feel the same way. And Van, yourself, final comments on a trip well played by Van Fletcher. Kudos to you, buddy. What are your final thoughts on this journey that you put together for us all?
Well, everyone said it. The golf is amazing. The views are incredible. The actual scores are never what we want them to be. But as I get older, and realize that my best scoring golf days are probably behind me, or definitely behind me, just the experience, and I don't have the experience of hanging out with guys, and a couple of you guys don't live near me, and I don't see you very often, but I just enjoyed the whole experience of hanging out, playing beautiful golf courses, eating some great dinners, the food, the Guinness at the end of the day. I came back. I wasn't tired. I wasn't exhausted. I was really just refreshed, just mentally, besides my golf game, which I'm working on. I learned some things, as I mentioned, about my golf game that I am working on already. That'll make me a better golfer. And I want to do it again. I don't want to wait another 10 or 15 years to go back. I'm not going to. And we'll definitely start working on another trip soon. I loved everything about it.
Fantastic. Well, I'll tell you guys, I would send my sentiments parallel each of your sentiments. It was a very special trip. I want to thank my wife for giving me the privilege to go. She's very selfless in that she let me do this. She'll probably never spend the kind of money that I spent on this trip going, so I have to say that. I want to thank Van for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to join you guys on a trip of a lifetime. And until next time, guys, I want to say I love all of you. I can't wait to play golf with you. I can't wait to see you. All the best to you and your families. And in the future, let's look forward to more birdies and pars on the journey of life and golf. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day. That ends our show today for the Forecast. And I'm your host, Allen Burton. I look forward to next time when we'll have someone on that's hopefully going to share some insights to the game of golf and recommend you take a journey of a lifetime. Enjoy. See you next time, guys.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.